Now for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning, let's bring in a RISE analyst, Dr. Constance Ikoku, who's already had me in stitches.
Yeah, I'm almost in tears.
Me
Sorry.
too.
Sorry for being clownish behind the cameras now. Yeah, good to see you, Charles and Yolanda. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Dr.
How
Constance.
are you guys today?
Fine.
Oh, thanks for the comedy skit, by the way.
And then you're back from hiatus. Where have you been? Welcome back.
I've been all over the place. Thank you for having me again. Good to be back.
Yeah. So and Yola is going to be reviewing the papers with us today. He is the chief international correspondent of the Africa Report. That's Eniola Akinkuotu. Hello there and welcome to the program. We'll begin with this day. There we have emergency rule over soon in Rivers as Tinubu reconciles Wike Fubara assembly. Specific details of this meeting between the president, the governors in Fubara, FCT Minister Nyesom Wike, and the Rivers Assembly members are not available. However, there are strong indications that the president is disposed to lifting the emergency rule any moment from now, says this report. We know that Fubara had severally met the president, leading to speculations he may join the ruling All Progressives Congress APC. In fact, it is reported that Fubara had attempted to join the APC before the emergency rule declaration, but was blocked by Wike. So while it seems that Wike is really in charge of two parties in Rivers, what a powerful position to be in. But the report goes on to say that it's obvious Fubara has to make peace with Wike for his own political survival. Can we pull up those pictures in page 37 of this day newspaper? The pictures of that meeting with the president. We have all the big wigs from Rivers State there trying to settle their scores. Eniola, I have not seen the story in any other major newspaper headline. It seems it's an exclusive of this day, correct me if I'm wrong. But what's your assessment of goings on in relation to this latest development in Rivers?
So the meeting took place very late last night, when a lot of newspapers had gone to bed. So kudos to this day at least for getting it in their hard copy today. I know a lot of other newspapers will be playing catch-up later today. Well, I would have loved, and this is a very personal opinion, for this matter to have gone to the Supreme Court and, the Supreme Court would have made a final decision on this. It would have deepened our jurisdiction. Because if this is lifted, what happens next time when a president decides that he wants to suspend a governor? We have all these arguments back and forth all over again. If the Supreme Court had decided it once and for all, maybe, would have known the legality of this. That being said, I think that, Fubara's case, he's going to be a lame duck. That's the long and short of it. He's in PDP for now. Wike is in PDAPC, one leg in, one leg out. That state essentially has become a one-state party. You see what happened in the National Assembly about 2 days ago, especially at the Senate, where they're trying to push the confirmation of the state independent electoral commission so that they can quickly do a local government election. My guess is that they want to quickly wrap that up before Fubara comes back. Once that happens, most likely the APC or their proxies are going to win most of the seats there in the local government elections. And then, election season begins next year. And it becomes very easy for the president to win that state all over again. I don't really know what Fubara is losing in all this, because if you look at the first meeting brokered by the president when this whole crisis started, everything worked against Fubara, and I don't think it's going to be any better. So he's more or less a lame duck, and he will be lucky if he's even given a second term. I think that's unlikely. I heard from the grapevine, it's one of the decisions there that most likely he's not going to get a second term, so he's just able to leave office honorably. Just finish your first term, yes.
I know we were discussing in the newsroom that what is he coming back to do? Yes, he comes back, but essentially the rug almost has been pulled from under his feet. So yeah, it's a tough situation for him, but I guess he just wants to finish the rest of his tenure and see where he goes from there. Let's move on to the Vanguard newspaper. 210 trillion naira. Senate gives NNPCL fresh 10-day ultimatum, rejects 2-month plea. This is in regard to financial queries in NNPCL's audited financial statements. The organization had requested a 2-month extension to compile documents. This has been rejected. The Senate is outraged at mind-boggling financial irregularities, including over 200 trillion in unexplained receivables and undocumented legal and audit fees spanning 2017 to 2023. It is a long story. Ultimately, the indication is that the NNPCL's books has a gaping hole in it and needs to be explained. The organization, we know, is a cash cow of the country, has been subject to abuse in various administrations. And earlier, will this inquiry help to strengthen things or straighten out things? What do you think?
You know, when the Petroleum Industry Act was passed, I think sometime in 2019, we're told, oh, it's a game changer and all that, that is going to deepen corporate governance and transparency, especially in the national oil firm. But we haven't seen that. Let me say also that at the risk of sounding like devil's advocate, I don't believe for 1 second that 210 trillion went missing or is unexplained. Look, 210 trillion between 2017 and I think 2021, that's the period of review. That's about $400 billion if you're going to use the exchange rate at that time. That is more than Nigeria's GDP. How is it possible that Nigeria's GDP would have been mismanaged by its national oil firm? What was Nigeria's budget within those periods? I don't believe for 1 second. And most of the time we see a lot of these probes at the National Assembly, we have, screaming headlines, but nothing comes out of it. You just see, okay, let us, they're having a private session at National Assembly, off camera, all that, and then everything just fades away. This is what happens all the time. So I want the NNPC to be very, very frank. You should be open. Come out clearly. This is your own audited report. I understand, yes, they just changed their, they have a new management and all that, but the books are there. The 2 months they're asking for is too long. Maybe they should just ask for more time so that at least they can defend themselves properly.
Yeah, and you know what happens with most of these government corruption cases? At the end of the day, there's a slap on the wrist plea bargain that is negotiated, and people walk away with a lot of money. Not saying this is the case with the NNPCL, but we have instances of these kind of cases everywhere littered, over the years. So it is something that needs to be dealt with. Let's move on to Daily Sun. A brain drain, how 15-year pay freeze sparked instructors' exodus at the Nigerian College of Aviation Technology, Zaria, Kaduna, NCAT, it's called. NCAT is arguably the largest and most well-established aviation school in West Africa. It's witnessing a quiet exodus of highly skilled trainers due to poor and stagnant wages. This has triggered concern over the future of aviation training in Nigeria. For nearly 6 decades, NCAT had trained pilots, air traffic controllers, engineers, and other aviation professionals. But the salary structure is so inadequate for professionals training the next generation of aviation experts. What have been an impressive special report that shines light on an area that ordinarily we won't speak about. Charles, every sector in this country is being impacted by an underperforming economy. How do you view this report?
First of all, let me start from this perspective as someone who is scared of flying. And the institution that trains our pilots is being underfunded, underpaid, then I'm beginning to wonder what kind of pilot it's going to churn out, and so probably it even increases my fear. Well, having said that, the NCAT is probably the aviation parastatal that earns far less than its other counterparts. For instance, the report says a level 17 officer in NCAT earns under 700,000 naira monthly, which is significantly lower than what their peers in the Nigerian Airspace Management Agency (NAMA) earns, where a level 15 officer takes home at least 1 million naira, not including other allowances. Now, I wonder what is the cause of this disparity. Maybe, just maybe, somebody somewhere does not believe that the NCAT is of such significance such that the emoluments and wages of its staff would remain stagnant for that long. I mean, there are always upward review of wages, you know, given the inflation indices that hit the country every now and then. But then, for this institution, with all its significance, somehow gets neglected. And, well, the good thing is that this report has brought it out in the open, and I believe that the powers that be would do something about it, because the next time I enter an aircraft, I wonder exactly how I'm going to be feeling.
You know, Charles, sorry, Dr. Constance, I just wanted to give a short point here and just say that this is also the reason why we have so many people opting for the JAPA option. Because if you are skilled and you go to such a highly rated institution, and then you can't be paid what you deserve, I mean, what options are left than to leave?
So it's talking about the trainers, actually, the poor pay. It's not talking about the quality of the education that is offered at the institution. So you have to be able to keep your one
would impact on the other, Dr. Constance.
True. Well,
definitely.
True.
Well, there's no motivation.
I mean, if there's no motivation, then the quality dips. Is that not what's happening in the education sector?
Also in the health sector too. See that a lot of the doctors are also leaving. Yeah, but because of the the weakness of the Nigerian currency now, the JAPA option is even more difficult.
Yes,
now.
It's expensive.
So you just have to stay. We die here, as I say.
All right. Well, I'm dying here. I don't know about you guys. I am here. Okay.
We're here with you.
I love my country. I love Africa. Anyway, the Punch newspaper. Federal revenue agencies face shake-up as Tinubu signs tax bills. The implication of this new law is that new revenue-generating agencies, or the ones we have, including the Nigeria Customs Service, the Nigeria Upstream Regulatory Commission, and other ministries and agencies may lose their tax collection mandates. We now have the Nigeria Revenue Service, the sole body responsible for collecting federal chargeable taxes. This new law will take effect from January 1, 2026. I listened to Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, yesterday. Quite impressive, sweeping reforms coming our way, especially with this sole body now charged with tax collection. Any other thoughts here?
Well, I really love to see the Gazette, the official Gazette, now that it has been signed. Because, during the process of the amendments, when the bills were being passed and then the debate and all that, there were some changes that were made. I recall that the CG of Customs came to, appeared before the Joint Committee of National Assembly, where he spoke about the disadvantages of stripping customs of its revenue collecting powers. He argued that they had been exceeding all their targets. And so I really don't know how it's going to happen. Is it that this NRS is going to have desk officers in these revenue generating agencies? Because these revenue generating agencies, they also have collection fees, which is, they use to run their organizations too. So I don't know how. That's why I'm happy that at least they're giving 5 or 6 months to iron out some of these issues, so we know how it works out. Because that NRS is going to be some sort of behemoth, and the head of that agency is going to be some Superman, because he's going to be more powerful than all organizations, because it's who controls money that controls the system.
We'll see how that unfolds. On to New Telegraph. Obasanjo, reliance on foreign aid or corruption stifle Africa's progress. The former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, was speaking at the 32nd annual meeting of Afrexim Bank. He also said Nigeria, Egypt, Ethiopia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and South Africa ought to be leading the continent's development charge, given their demographics, resource, and economic strength. He said over-reliance on foreign aid is bad for Africa. I mean, there's nothing to contest in this argument put forward by the former president. When I was reading this story, a thought came to mind in the light of recent events. If any African country was attacked like Iran was, and responded with so much force and dignity, what will happen? I mean, there's no nuclear power on the African continent. These things just go through your mind. 54 countries, little wonder the continent is being pushed around. You're not seen as a threat. Yolanda, do you want to speak to the importance of African countries again, not relying too much on aid?
Absolutely. I love this report. Charles, I think when we were watching it earlier, I even mentioned how much I love this report because it really just speaks to the African inside and says, listen, we need to be self-sufficient and we need to focus on what we can do ourselves. They say such a majority of the world's resources are here on the African continent, the natural resources that is. And I think we need to tap into this. And this is a conversation that has been going on for forever. And I really just wish we could actually move into this in practicability, instead of, just talking about it and saying that this is what we need to do. Sorry, Charles, it seems you were about to jump in and say something.
I remember Professor Patrick Lumumba at a public forum did say that the solution is very simple. Whatever we need here in Africa is here in Africa.
Yes.
So instead of looking outwards and importing stuff from foreign countries, Africa can look inwards because we can actually import things like tea, for instance. Instead of importing from the UK or Sri Lanka, we could actually import tea from Kenya or Uganda.
Yes, or Zimbabwe.
Exactly. So intra-African trade, that's the way he put it, intra-African trade held the key to Africa's economic prosperity. Unfortunately, African nations prefer to look outwards rather, instead of looking inwards and boosting one another's economy through mutual trade.
All right, we have to move quickly now to The Guardian. How erratic supply shortchanges band A customers and households and industries. We can take that in terms of discussion, so let's move on to the Daily Times. FIRS transmutes to NRS as Tinubu assents to 4 tax reform bills. We've seen that. But also down there we have another story. NDLEA makes 66,000 arrests as Tinubu declares drug war. Then to the Daily Independent. Daily Independent this morning, PDP BOT counters Damago says Anyanwu can't resume neck holds. That's still on the PDP crisis. Then let's move on to the international headlines. Daily Graphic. Paper shortage hits births and deaths registry. It ran out of the special security paper used for printing certificates, leaving applicants frustrated. Onto the Citizen. Why only some heads roll? President Cyril Ramaphosa is said to have ignored calls to fire, quote, lying education minister, and instead got rid of the DA's Deputy Minister of Trade in the VBS scandal. So this scandal is a scheme that defrauds pensioners. On to Daily Mirror. One of the biggest stories in the UK today, Stammer benefits reverse. New hope on PIPs. Prime Minister offers major concessions to his rebel MPs in clampdown. Yolanda, I guess you have to live to fight another day. That's what the story is about. It's an apt description of what Prime Minister Keir Starmer had to do, facing major revolt from his own party and others as well on the welfare bill.
Yes, and I think really the fire is on with this because you have over 100 Labour MPs that have launched this major rebellion to block what the government is trying to do. So, Keir Starmer is not in a really favourable position at the moment. And, this comes before a crucial vote where, they're meant to go ahead and look at the amendments and see what they will reject. So coming just a week before that is quite a blow to the Keir Starmer administration.
Yeah, I was watching very touching stories about people who need welfare help in the country and how this bill is going to affect them. You know, so there are serious concerns there, and I think that, you know, he has listened to reason and he has made an about turn. Let's move on to the Times newspaper. Here we have the photo of billionaire Jeff Bezos and his wife Lauren Sanchez getting married, or married now, in Venice. There was a bit of protesters lining up the streets there complaining about the astronomical cost of the wedding. You know, very extravagant. Well, they have the money. Then on to Daily Mail, a very fascinating story in the Daily Mail today. Exclusive investigation in a plot twist worthy of John Le Carre. We reveal grandfather of the brilliant new head of MI6 was a Nazi spy chief. Charles, do you want to round us up here? Sounds very interesting, like something from a movie.
From a movie, very espionage.
Oh, absolutely, it does sound like something from a spy movie. But I think they are hanging too much on, you know, the Nazi regime in Germany. So her grandfather was a spy chief. Well, it does run in the blood, doesn't it? I mean, spy chief for the Nazi is the grandfather of the spy chief for the 21st century United Kingdom.
But they said she didn't know. They said she doesn't know that she didn't know her grandfather.
That's of no significance, is it?
You know that King Edward too was a Nazi sympathizer too. That is the king who abdicated. Yes, who now paved the way for Queen Elizabeth's father and, you know, her lineage to you know, ascend to the throne. There are pictures of him and his wife, you know, with Hitler, actually. So it's nothing new. These things it happened at that time. They said, oh, he was actually looking to Hitler to help, you know, restore him to the throne after he had left because he married a divorcee. You know, so, you know, the politics at that time was very much different. So it's just poetic, but I think there's really nothing much there.
Okay, on that note, Eniola Akinkuo, to Chief International Correspondent of the Africa Report, it's a pleasure having you. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
And it's an absolute pleasure today having you lead today's newspaper review, Dr. Constance. That's all we have time for here on Daybreak. I'm Charles Eruka.
And I'm Yolanda Robert. Please do keep it here on Arise News. The morning show is next. Bye-bye.